huge drug epidemic. So the interesting thing is that we're there. We're a nice, safe space. That fits within the scope of our mission. We'd love to participate. And so it's just a matter of finding the right group to partner with to make that happen, and we're looking. Hang on a second here. So I'd like to also talk about staffing. Now, it's a small staff now. Currently we have 4 full-time staff. Myself, David Hessen, who is our interim executive director responsible for the daily operations and delivery of services. Kelly Watson, who's our director of development and is responsible for securing resources so that we can support the program services we want to offer as a Chatfield Edge. And then David Powell is our facilities manager, whose duty is to maintain the property and on a very tight budget. So finally, I want to mention that for those of you who are not in the area but curious about what's happening at the Chatfield Edge, we're posting frequent updates on our social media sites such as Facebook and Instagram and LinkedIn. Also on our website, chatfieldedge.org, we also have a monthly newsletter that you can receive through our constant contact mailings. And if you want to be on the distribution list, you should have already, if you didn't receive a constant contact newsletter from the Chatfield Edge in the last month, then you're probably not on the list. So you need to let Kelly Watson know. She'll add you to the list, and you should hopefully be in the queue to get the April newsletter that'll be coming out anytime now. So now I'd like to introduce David Hessen to share what he's been doing for the Chatfield Edge. And then after David is finished, Kelly will share her activities with you. And then, like I said earlier, we'll open the floor up for questions. David?
Making sure I unmute. And hi, everyone. My name is David Hessen, and some of you I know, some of you have not met yet or talked with over Zoom. So I was the Associate Academic Dean here at the St. Martin campus, and I was the site director here back through the end of 2022. I've stepped in as the interim executive director for the Edge. So we are busy moving forward. And I just want to assure you, like I assure everyone that I talk to all the time, that we are busy and working and helping students and exploring all kinds of new possibilities for the Chatfield Edge to be active in the region. So, you know, rest assured on that case, right? The college might have closed, but we have not closed, and our hearts have not closed, and the mission has not closed. So we are going. I wanted to say, actually, Bob made me think about it. I did want to tell you briefly a little bit about Alyssa, who is receiving the Alumni Scholarship, and she is a wonderful girl. You all would be so, I hope you all are so proud that she is able to get some help. She is very independent, and she is very reserved. So she doesn't, let you know a lot of things. She watches everything and takes everything in. But she graduated high school. She is so smart. And she worked for several years just in a fast food, type job for several years into her mid-20s. And then just finally decided she had enough and needed to go back to school. And she came here. She's from the Blanchester area. And we were a good fit for her because she is, reserved and doesn't necessarily do the big school environment. And she has just thrived here and is doing so well. And she has about another year to go to get her associate's degree. She is trying to pay for everything herself. So she doesn't necessarily always take a full class load because she doesn't want to go into debt. She's very mindful of that. So it's taking her a little longer to get through it, but she's doing it herself, very independent, which again is the spirit of who you all are, right? So I just wanted to throw that in, that it's, your scholarship is really working and helping a really bright young lady to get education, which is what we're about. With that in mind, that's what the Edge is doing. That's who we are. And we're trying to help people from Hamilton County all the way, as far east as we can manage. We have 8 current students, 8 students who had received scholarships in the fall. We said we're still going to keep those scholarships for you in the spring. And so we have 8 students at 4 different schools in the area: Cincinnati State, Southern State, NKU, and Mount St. Joe. And we have provided scholarships for all of them. And I keep in touch with all of them and make sure that they're doing okay. Yes, I can, Kelly, if you give me more information. Kelly's typing me messages while I'm talking, so that's the way we operate. You know, so as Bob said, we're a small staff, but we're mighty of heart, and so you know, we're trying to explore and push things forward and grow partnerships with all of them. One of our students, I thought I would tell you a little bit about kind of the vision of how the Edge would work all the way through. So this current group, we're already at Chatfield, so they already sort of, you know, they had applied to schools, they were in a school, they had some ideas about what they wanted to do, but the goal of the Edge would be we could take a person from just that instance of, I want to go back to school, or I want to keep going in school, but I don't know what to do, or I'm nervous, or I don't think I can do it. And we would be the people that would help them. We would help them navigate the system. We would help them, if they needed to get to the campus for a college visit, we would help them with that. If they needed help with their FAFSA, with their college essay, all those types of things. What should I study? What type of school should I go to? Where can I go to learn to be a respiratory therapist? You know, what kind of schools have that? Working with a new student, not one of the 8, a newer student recently, and she kind of had some things. She needed to be online because she works full time. She needed this, she needed this, she had this. Could we find a school that gave credit for previous work experience in the area? Could we, you know, so it's all the questions, and we're just helping. You know, we're not the ones doing all the things, but we're walking with them and getting them into a program. And then once they have done that, encouraging them to explore all the financial resources that are available through that school. And then, you know, seeing what's left over, and we can provide some, what we call close the gap scholarships and funding, which is where your scholarship comes in and helps the students do that. Also, if they need extra resources along the way, one of our 8 students was switching from being a commuter student to a living on campus student. Her family does not have a lot of resources, so we were able to provide dorm supplies and cleaning supplies and laundry detergent and all those things that are expensive and hard for students sometimes to come by. So we helped her get those things. And that was an extra added relief for her because, you know, it's not enough just to get into the school or get to a place, but you have to be able to live there and succeed there and, you know, and do all the things. So we help with that. And then, you know, we will provide mentoring. So the call is out for mentors. Once a student who has begun with us is into a school and into a program, then we'll connect them with a mentor who will stick with them through their completion of their educational goal, whether that's a 2-year program, a nursing school program, an apprenticeship program, or a 4-year program. The mentor is going to stick with them because Chatfield College and the mission and the Ursulines and all of the history here has never been to abandon a person, you know, once they were partway to their goal. It was to stick with them and walk with them in their journey. And that has always been my personal philosophy. And, you know, I always used to tell the kids at orientation, you didn't mean to, you didn't realize it, but you walked in my office or my classroom and now you're stuck with me. And that's just the way it is. You're part of our family and I'm part of yours, and we're going to be walking through this together. And that is what the Edge is all about. And then along with the mentoring is what we call the servant leaders pillar. And we want to encourage them to give back to their community as they start to grow, as they get established in their school or their training, as they complete that, to help open their eyes to possibilities of giving back, whether that's working with us and continuing to volunteer, whether it's working here in St. Martin at at Hope Emergency, which I dearly love, or somewhere in Cincinnati, East St. Vincent de Paul or Free Store Food Bank, or some other project that we have, but giving back and growing the community is really important. So we want to provide opportunities for that. We hope to offer in the future, some spiritual retreats here at the St. Martin campus, which is another great way we can utilize the space that we have. Those things would not be required because we don't want to force anyone to do things, but we want to offer those things and provide those things and guide people into those things. And so that's kind of how the edge would work. I know people are always sort of curious about what do we do, and those are some of the things that we're doing. Bob talked briefly a little bit about the GRIT project, and Kelly put a link up so you can see about it. So GRIT is not a company itself. It is a coalition of agencies and services to grow rural independence. It was started 6 years ago in 4 counties. Brown County was one of those 4. And it was just some people coming together to say, the region needs help. People need help. The area needs help. What can we do? And so they have really focused on K-12 schools and getting kids plans so that they don't leave high school without an idea of what they're going to do next. But it's grown bigger and bigger in the last 6 years. This year, they're going to add up to, and they'll be working in 19 counties from Claremont County all the way to the river and up to Perry County in the north, the whole rural Appalachian region. Future Plans is the nonprofit sort of organizational group that helps to manage this massive coalition that has started. The co-founder of that, Dr. Denise Reading, is a dynamo powerball of a person. We went to a GRIT conference a couple of weeks ago in Chillicothe. Kelly and I connected with her, and she was familiar with the Ursulines, and she had worked with the Ursulines out of Cleveland and was very familiar and passionate about the Ursuline mission. So when she saw what we were doing at Chatfield, she was super excited and instantly said, I need to come visit the campus. I want to see what you got. I want to be a part of it. She is very highly connected with major fundraising in the government and advocacy and those legislature, those things. That's her kind of wheelhouse. So she was here this week on Thursday and her wheels are turning and she has all kinds of ideas about some of the things that Bob was talking about. And she just thought the space was amazing. She could feel the peace that comes from the campus and, how can we help the community with this, with this gift that we have. So that's a very exciting opportunity. Another thing that we would like to encourage is we had a former student who had started with us in the fall, again, the kind of student that Chatfield helped, which was he sort of needed just a little extra and didn't want to do a big school. He was a dual credit student, young, and just sort of needed to find a place. And so he came by a few weeks ago and said, he lives very close, he can walk here. And he was like, can I still come in the Welcome Center and study, and just do stuff? And we were like, of course, yes, of course, gosh. I said, you're part of the family, of course you can. So and his mom came by and said, are you sure he can just come in and we don't have to pay anything? And I was like, no, gosh, no, you're us and we're you and you're part of us. So he comes in and sits and studies sometimes and just does an extra place to get away. And that is still, a possibility for people. And we have a computer lab where people can come and do schoolwork. And so we're very open to those kinds of things. We have been active going to the Chamber of Commerce. We have been going with the vocational school runs the Business Advisory Council for Brown County, and I have gone to those meetings. And so, that's all, they're connected with GRIT. Everybody's connected, right? So we keep getting the name out of who we are and what we're about and that we're open and that we're doing stuff. And so really my kind of, call to action for you is simply to do those same things. Say it's happening. Let people know that we're up and running and we're out there and they can find us. And if you know people who want to be involved, who want to volunteer, who want to mentor, we would love that. We need them. It is sometimes hard to find mentors in the Brown County area. So that would be fantastic. If you know people, or you have relatives who know people, it's all about, telling people to tell people who know people who might need a little extra support. We're here to support them. And again, they can, just go look up Chatfield, find us on the web, and you'll get us. And we'll answer them right back. So that's what I hope everybody does, is talk it up and talk us up. And we're here, and this thing could be as big as it could possibly, people could imagine it to be, as long as we have the partners to grow it together. We could be a real force in the region, and that's the hope and the dream. So one way to make that happen is through what Kelly Watson does. And so I'm going to turn it over to her right now and let her talk a little bit to you.
Hi, everyone. And my apologies for sending a secret message to David and interrupting his flow. My secret message was don't forget to mention our other scholarships that you're familiar with that are helping our current Chatfield Edge students. So Alyssa Woods is also the recipient of the class of 1961 scholarship, which is near and dear to Becky Sheminsky's heart, of course. Pamela Hurley, who is an amazing non-traditional student, one of David's favorites. She is in her 60s, 70s.
She's 74 years old.
She's 74 years old, coming back to get her degree. She's also she's a reverend, isn't she?
I believe she's ordained. She has done some schooling, but just wanted to not let this time of her life pass her by. And so she started back to school a couple of years ago. And yeah, she's so positive and wonderful. Yeah.
And so Pamela is the recipient of the Helen and Francis McNamara Scholarship, near and dear to Jean's heart, and also the Sister Agatha Scholarship. And then Shakita Horton, she has the Jewel Craig Scholarship. She's one of our current scholars, I believe. And then Erica Henderson has the Sister Ellen Doyle Leadership Scholarship. So so this is one of the wonderful through lines, and continuums that as we have progressed, through this transition, which has not been without its emotions and its challenges, but for all in all, it's been, as Denise Redding, who David was mentioning from Grit, told us the other day. She said, that she had been describing Chatfield's situation and the transition, and to other leaders of colleges, and they said it's been the most graceful transition imaginable. And I just like to concur. I wasn't part of the transition, but just Bob and the board really have done a masterful job of making it as smooth as possible and finding a path forward. And that path forward, is all about our students opening up doors of opportunity to better their lives through higher education. And that has not skipped a beat. It hasn't skipped a beat. Those students were here with Chatfield in the fall. Our scholarship students, they're here with the Edge now. We've been up and running for a little over 2 months, and we are thick as thieves with these students. So the challenges are great. We don't have the same revenue streams as before. We lost a lot of donors through the transition. Some of them are on the fence, waiting to see how it, how things will turn out. But the good news is a lot of them have stayed with us. And especially just judging by how the response was to our annual end of year drive around Christmas. Those donors who have been with us for 5 years, 10 years consecutively, those are the ones who stayed and who gave again. So that was really encouraging. We did not actively fundraise from April to November, just during the transition, as to not confuse the message. So we are doing a bit of catch up now to reach our goal for the fiscal year, which ends June 31st. Our goal for the year is 300,000, and we're currently at 173,949, so almost 174,000. Our strategy to get us there, we have our scholarship brunch coming up April 15th. You hopefully have received your letter in the mail and inviting you to this occasion. If you haven't gotten it yet, you'll be getting it within the next few days. It is much like our scholarship brunches of the past, except we're building some fundraising around it and using it as kind of a kickoff for our spring fundraising drive. It's replacing our auction, our Chatfield Dreams auction that we've had in years past. It's just, with our small staff, that's not something we could really endeavor to take on with our, just in the time remaining and with our staff. So we're building fundraising around the brunch. If those who are there, there's a cost to, you can come in at a level of sponsorship for the brunch, 50 being the lowest, all the way to 10,000. We do have 2 donors at the 10,000 level already, Duke Energy Foundation and also the Castleberry family. And then we have, for those of you who are able to attend, we'll have brunch provided by our board member and local famous restaurateur, Marvin Smith from Ollie's Trolley. We'll have a nice jazz trio, mimosas, and we'll hold it in our Over the Rhine campus, which is for sale. It might be one of our last moments to gather in that space and just celebrate what that space has meant to us and our students and our Chatfield family for the past several years. But if you're not able to attend, you're still able to be involved by giving to the scholarship drive if you wish, or we're also going to start a small, not so small really, but like a mini capital campaign to raise funding to help with our challenges with the chapel that Bob was talking about earlier. So if you are this is just in its infancy right now. We're getting the quotes, as Bob mentioned, just coming up with a list of really what needs to be done and how much that's going to cost. If you would like to assist with that effort, assist with the strategy and the development of that campaign, please contact me. We'd really love to work with you and have you as our partners in that endeavor. We also have, we've also applied for our first grant as the Chatfield Edge. You know, once the legal, the minor legal changes were made, you know, to the name, and we're keeping our 501c3, that remains unchanged. So that makes it easy. So that first grant application is in, and there will be more following that. So our needs are many, and many hands make light work, as you well know. So please join us in our work to support our mission. And any questions? I apologize for the background noise. My brother is having his 50th birthday at my house today. And also, just for some comic relief, I don't know if this is the moment for comic relief, but if you excuse me for one moment, I'd like to introduce you to someone. And Robin, this is why we could not talk on Friday. So
Ellie, you've got to be kidding me. I cannot believe. Oh my gosh. I know what she's doing. So we had an unexpected visitor to the campus on Friday morning, and Kelly could not, we had to go to Cincinnati in the afternoon, and she just could not leave this visitor unattended. And so she decided to keep this visitor with her, supposedly to take to someone who would care for it more, but she has.
Oh, wow.
So this is Martin. We found him wandering around the Welcome Center on Friday, very lost and scared and alone. So he's about 4 months old.
Oh,
And I'm not allowed to.
I was
keep him,
wondering,
or else-
Kelly, I remember a few years ago, we had one of the neighbors' horses wandering around campus, and that flashed back in my mind because I know you're a horse.
She would have taken that too. She would have taken that too.
He'd be in the house
Adorable.
too.
He is very sweet and loving. He is very sweet and loving.
Well, there's our first mascot.
He really just wanted to be picked up and held like a baby. And
He
Kelly
does.
carried him around like a baby all morning.
All right. Well, Kelly, thank you very much. And David also. I'll pause here and see. We've thrown a lot of information out there to you, and see what kind of questions you might have for me or us. Robin?
yeah, I looked at that GRIT website real quick. They look so similar to Chatfield Edge. Can you talk about that a bit?
Well, they are very similar. We've known about GRIT thanks to Maureen Kiley, one of our trustees in the area in Brown County. She introduced us to GRIT right at the beginning of COVID back in 2019. And so we were working with GRIT on their introduction into Brown County. They were just getting formed here and trying to determine how the college fits within that. And then COVID hit and it never really got off the ground. But when the college closed and we took a look at what our activities are as a pure nonprofit serving students who are pursuing education and workforce development, that's exactly what they do. And so there was a nice alignment of mission. And because Denise is very familiar with the area down here in rural counties, not just in Brown County or Adams, but all the rural counties in Ohio and Chatfield. And she went through and combed through our webpage, and it was just a natural fit for in terms of the resources that we have that can support them and what they want to do. So they're looking in areas of supporting women released from incarceration. They're looking at foster care. They're looking at workforce, supporting students that are in an online environment for learning because they can't leave this area. But the problem is they don't have reliable internet, so it's challenging. They can't succeed. And then looking at it as from a workforce development perspective, in that there's a lot of good jobs out there that are virtual, but if you can't connect, you don't have the resources, it's for naught. So, and there's also an emphasis in Ohio now to really provide some economic development to the rural counties in Ohio. They've been neglected, and they've suffered through this fentanyl distribution and all the drug distribution through the area and the deaths related to that and how it disrupts family, and it disproportionately affects females more than anybody. So, and that affects children in foster care. So it's a huge problem, but there's not a lot of facilities in these areas. And we just, Chatfield has 100 acres, several buildings designed for resident living on a short-term or long-term basis. They have summer workshops they put together for youth to try to get them out of their environment for, a couple of months through the summer while they're not in school, and help get them pointed in the right direction about how they can vision their future. But it requires overnight stay. So Brescia fits into that too. So where we're at is we can provide a lot of the resources that they were looking for when it comes to the facilities and the infrastructure that we have to offer. We have, if you come in our campus right now, you would not know that we're not operating as a college, because everything's intact. And we did that deliberately because we do expect people will want to use that. So we are participating with them in a grant ask on Friday. We gave them a budget on what it's going to take to get Brescia up to speed and ready to go for dormitory living for some of their clientele. And we'll be getting rental income off of that. So that got that to her. There's another step that we need to take, but she's got other possibilities she's going to introduce us to. And this was pretty quick that these things happen, but we just happened to seem like we were the right place at the right time. And again, you guys know this, it's the work of the invisible hand. God is with us, and he blesses us, and he provides people at the time we need it. And I think it just feels like a really good partnership. It's mission driven, and that's what we're always focused on. Even as a college, we were always number one in mission. We never lost that, and we wanted to retain that aspect of Chatfield going forward. So I think it's finding the right group to partner with, and then working on the collaborative efforts to make that work. So I could see where Chatfield could be a nice hub. When the student came in and our former student wanted to use our welcome center just to get away and have a break from things, we're all about that. But then I started thinking, you know what? I don't think we've really publicized that it's open. Anytime we're here from Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, come on in, spend some time with us, make yourself at home. So we have a marketing plan that we're working with the marketing pack out of Cincinnati for over about a year now. And so we have a marketing strategy for from now through the end of December about which different channels we're targeting, what we're going to be doing, and we have an advertising plan. So all of that's been sort of held back until we got into March because we needed to get through all that transition and infrastructure set up. That's done. Now we're actively busy letting people know who we are and what we're about. And so I expect that we'll be getting more referrals like we have been, but we're also going to be getting the word out in the public. And so in April, I have a presentation with GC3, which is the Greater Cincinnati Consortium of Colleges and Universities. They're very supportive of what we do, what we want to do. They have resources. They have a huge need. They can't deal with all of it, but we can help support them with some of it. So, and we also met with City Gospel Mission out of Cincinnati. They've come out to our facility. Jeremiah Scholars is a program they operate similar to the Chatfield Edge. They fund the scholarships, but they don't know how to deal with the aspects of supporting students while they're in school. So the one thing David touched upon, which is unique to us, is that, and Denise picked up on this, we're not just going to point you in the right direction and get you started and we got you in college and move on to the next one. We're going to be with you while you're in college or post-secondary education, all the way to the point you complete, and we're going to help you with your job search and getting that first job. So it's a long-term commitment to be with someone and really help hold their hand, because a lot of times they don't have that resource at home. I understand what that looks like. As a first-generation college student, I didn't have anybody in my family to point me in the right direction. I had to figure it out on my own. I had to be determined. You doubt yourself sometimes, but you stick with it. You have to have, I call it grit. And so that sort of fits in line with the grit program too, is you don't let people give up on themselves. And that's what we're good at. We've got 51 years experience as a college doing that. And before that, it was, the Ursulines of Brown County that started that pathway for us in terms of the focus of developing the whole person. That's a long-winded answer, Robin.
Thank you. That was very helpful.
Dean?
Well, I've got a bunch of questions, and I'll start with you, with your talk about the damage, the storm damage and the buildings, will insurance cover all the damage that occurred from the storm?
I don't know yet. Because they sent the first adjuster out, and he usually handles residential stuff, and it was way over his head. So he said, I'll have to refer it to the large loss people, and they'll be in touch with you. So I'm hoping that we'll connect next week, but it is extensive.
Okay.
So I have no idea we have good insurance. We have a $5,000 deductible, replacement value. So all of that's there. We've got some good pictures. So I don't know, Gene, yet what that would cover. And fortunately, everything's insured. So even the pole barn out back where the the stables used to be is covered, and it had some damage. So I don't know.
And then I think the answer should be yes, and hopefully you will fight for that. But I have another question about the Sacred Heart Chapel. I mean, many years ago, when John Tafaro was president, I remember discussing with him, he was trying hard to get historical status for that building, which would allow for some grants to help repairs on an ongoing basis that are needed for that building. Where does that stand at this point?
Yeah, I think what he was talking about was, I just met with him last week. We were looking at a renovation project similar to what we did downtown. And so the grants come in the form of tax credits through the state of Ohio and the federal government for historic renovations. And he felt like because there's never been a historic renovation in recent time in Brown County, we would score high for the state to get state tax dollars, and we know we probably get the federal tax dollars. So that has not been pursued based on what we had to deal with in COVID, and we have had people out. I've had several people out to look at it. The good news is structurally it's sound. We don't have to do anything, put any money on foundational structural work. We have to seal it up, like maybe trench out around the base of the foundation and put some waterproofing on it, but that's about it. But the roof is going to probably be the biggest item. It's the original roof. It's translucent, and it needs to be re-slated if that's what we do with it, or it may be another product out there that's just as effective and cheaper, but it obviously wouldn't last as long. So, and the front part where you walk in, where the old building used to be connected, is separating. And that's got to be all torn out and really redone, and that's going to be an extensive amount of work too.
Yeah, so a lot of that work has been needed for a long time. I mean, many of those line items I remember discussing with John Tafaro probably 7 or 8 years ago. So rather than go through the longer list of what needs to be done, I guess my question is there a plan to try and get those tax dollars? Is that going to continue, or are you just going to try and raise the money? What's the plan for trying to address all these issues that grow here?
Yeah, there is no plan at this point. Chatfield is very limited in its resources, and so we're going to have to, my goal is to try to get all the costs identified so we can at least come up with it's going to be we thought $1 million project, but as John and I talked this week, it's probably a $2 million project now. So if that's what it looks like it's going to be, how's this going to be funded? And so part of it's going to be tax credit, which could be up to 25% of the project, which is a pretty significant number, but we still would have to come up with 75% on our own, and that's where that becomes the challenge.
So who's heading up the project for the Sacred Heart? I mean, you're talking about a $2 million project. That's a major planning project, especially if you're planning funding from different sources. Who's heading that?
I think the board would have to decide. They'd probably set up a subcommittee like we did when we looked at the Over the Rhine building, and then put a group of people on there, primarily the finance and building and grounds departments or committees, to take this in and start to really get serious about getting bids, really having people come in, put pencil to paper. But it's going to take a while.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So you're telling me there isn't anything at this point. That's what I'm hearing.
That's right.
So, Jean, if I could just add to that. So as we were discussing this, the chapel has, had needs for several years, as you were pointing out. And, it was always a kind of intention with the operational needs of the college, then the operational needs of COVID, and now here we are as the Chatfield Edge, a completely different entity. Things got worse over Christmas. Suddenly the plaster, looked bad. It looked a lot worse because just the cold temperatures. There was more water. So as Bob and I were talking, and this, again, this is all coming together. It's not a conceived plan at this point, but I'm kind of thinking it as a multi-stage, plan where we have a mini capital campaign to, and Bob, correct me if I'm going off in the weeds here, but we have a mini capital campaign to shore up, the immediate needs while we start to develop, what is a major capital campaign with historic tax credits. That's gonna, as a capital campaign has to kind of exist as a separate entity as your annual campaign, which is funding, your operations and your other needs. They have to be on parallel tracks, but with different energy, coming into them to reach the goals. So
Kelly, let me ask you, because you talk about operational costs, this $300,000 campaign that you're conducting right now, that is all going to Chatfield Edge operation costs. What's your annual budget? Because I heard $250K a year is required just for maintenance of the campus.
mm-hmm.
I heard it's $300K, but what's your top line budget for Chatfield Edge that includes the property and the operation of the organization?
It would be a minimum of 600,000.
600,000. Okay, thank you. And then you've got 4 full-time staff. Actually, what I really, I think all of us were just heartsick to hear that this move had to be taken. But on reflection, I'm really happy to hear everything that I have, because in a sense, what you've retained is what was special about Chatfield. I mean, there are many 2-year colleges around the country, but what was special about Chatfield was the attention to people who have a high barrier to getting a higher education, overcoming those initial obstacles, like where do you even start? The remedial help that you might need, the financial help that you might need, the mentoring that you might need. And that's what you're retaining with Chatfield Edge. So you are retaining what was special about Chatfield and what was the mission of the Ursulines. That said, with 4 full-time staff to help people overcome initial hurdles and give them the long-term support that you want, it seems to me you're going to need a pretty good size dedicated group of volunteers to assist you with this. And what's the plan around that?
I'll let David handle that.
A lot of prayer, Gene, a lot of prayer. So that comes partially from our work with the marketing pack, and that is why we continue to meet with groups, other local agencies to help attract volunteers and mentors. We're working with the Cincinnati Women's Club. We received their President's Project the previous year, which they raised money for us, for Chatfield. That sort of paused when they heard the college was closing. Now that the Edge is reformed, they're back in with us. And they are very interested in helping provide people to work with us. I met with a young man from UC's Student Government Community Affairs group, and they are interested in expanding their footprint beyond their campus into the community. And so they have offered to do some volunteering. They're going to volunteer. A group of them are going to volunteer with us for the scholarship event brunch in April. So it's those kinds of meetings and partnerships that we are hoping help pull in the mentors that we need. And certainly then through our advertising, we're in some different publications, which Bob could tell you about. We're going to be in Seasons magazine. We were just in a publication called Movers and Makers, right? Movers and Makers, yeah. which a lot, very big in the nonprofit stuff. And that's why Kelly and I have tried to reach out in the nonprofit world, which is where we're new players in the ballgame from the education world, to see what kinds of partnerships are available.
Have you considered
Part of
online
servant learning
mentoring?
is, let me add that part of servant learning is being able to utilize some of the recipients of the services as they, mature out and get closer to completion of their program to give it back. And so that's one of the pillars that we have. So we're going to be developing that core as we move forward. And the other thing is we do have to seek out grants for people. I do expect we'll add people, but initially this is where we're at, and it's sufficient for the 8 that we currently have underway. And our best guesstimates are we might add another 15 when we get to the fall of 2023, a new cohort on top of the 8 that we already have. And some of those will graduate and some of them will continue on. So it's going to be a slow roll-up process as we see it. We have to live within our means. So I think there's going to be a lot more people that might maybe think they need our services, but when we get down to, well, here's what we expect of you, it's not just simply writing a check and patting you on the head and say, good luck. There's going to be some people that say, well, I don't know if I want to do all that. And so that's fine. We don't mind. We're here to support, but at the same time, there are other things that are involved with helping you besides writing the check or helping you decide what you need to do. There's going to be support along the way, and there's going to be a gift back along the way that we would expect, and that's the reciprocity component of the package.
So have you considered online mentoring? I mean, maybe there could be alumni that might be available like myself who could do the online mentoring.
Absolutely, and so we did drop Zoom because of the cost, but we get Microsoft Teams embedded in our Microsoft package. So we've switched everything over to Teams now, but that's available for any folks that get involved with us in terms of a mentor or a student relationship. And the other thing is on mentors, it's not simply somebody signs up and they get assigned a student. There's a training program that they have to go through. So we want to make sure they understand what they're committing to also, and how they have to interact with the student.
Okay.
Yeah, and remote mentoring would definitely be a possibility because we don't restrict where our students would be going to school. So, I mean, a student from Cincinnati could attend school anywhere. We're going to provide mentoring for you. I mean, if you're at Ohio State, if you're at Bowling Green, if you're at University of Michigan, if you're at, Bob would fall over probably, but I mean, you could be anywhere. So face-to-face meetings may not always be possible. The student could be, in other locations. Hopefully they would meet face-to-face, during breaks and when they came home and get to at least see each other that way in person. But yeah, definitely remote stuff is possible.
Okay, anything else? Well, thank you for your time and allowing us to, fill you in on what's going on with the Chatfield Edge. Again, if you didn't receive the newsletter, then make sure you get with Kelly and give her your email address so we can get you on the next round, which will be coming up here in a couple weeks.
Mm-hmm.
It's an easy read. It's about one page, and then we have links if you want to learn more.
Well, thank you so much. I'm totally delighted to hear all of your information. I've never spoken to David before. I've never met David, and I'm thrilled to hear what you shared with us. And I am sorry that we don't have a bigger group, but the group that's here today is what counts. And I thank each and every one of you for joining us. And you'll hear from us as president of the alumni. You will hear it from us. We've got your back. So, and we appreciate everything you do. Thank you so very much.
So Bob,
Great. We want to hear from you. We appreciate you, and we feel you do have our back.
Yes, we do.
Yes, sir.
So how, this has been recorded.
Yes.
So what's the information that we can send out to folks who had wanted to be on it but couldn't? How do we do that?
Teresa will, I'm sure Teresa will do that for us. She's not here on the Zoom right at this second, but I'm sure she will do that for us.
Oh, good.
And they'll be able
Okay.
to see the complete recording.
Oh, great.
And
Thanks.
we can highly recommend that people stop and see it and maybe even see it again a second time.
Great.
So
Thank you.
you're welcome. I am appreciative, like I said, of all of you. It's wonderful to see all of your faces. You're special to me and probably to Jill. I don't know, but I think so. And I really enjoy the rest of your day. And as I've said, you'll hear from us soon. And Kelly,
Thank
I'd
you.
love to have your email, your letter. So thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Teresa, had people asking about seeing the recording. Oh, Sister Lucia was asking, how can we send the recording out?